I'm going to tell you a little bit of my background because it relates to what is necessary for you if you want to take your income to a level that most salespeople only dream about. And yes, that's a picture of me from like 2001. Crazy, the pixels are all messed up. Bad pictures in those days. Now, I first got started in sales 22 years ago as a broke, burned out college student. I got my first job selling home security systems door to door, okay? By the raise of hands and maybe type in the chat, who in here has sold door to door? Now, we train a ton of people in solar. I'd say thousands. Some of them are virtual, like a lot of you that sell virtual, and some sell door to door, and some do both. So raise your hand if you've ever sold door to door or you're selling solar door to door right now. There's my people. See, I know who I'm dealing with, okay? So the company basically hired me. They hired everybody at the recruiting meeting while I was in college. Straight commission, they just hire everybody. They basically gave us a script. They gave us a couple of books by the sales gurus, and they said, hey, go make some sales. And basically they drive you out in a van, and I would say I don't want to show you, but they kick you out of the van and say, hey, it's going to be easy. We'll pick you up after dark. And I still remember I was the last person dropped off on the last block. And I remember like being all nervous, and I looked back at my sales manager. His name was Xane. He had this like blonde curly hair. I still remember it like vividly. And Xane said, Jeremy, remember, when you knock on their door, show them how excited you are about the product. Show them how much you believe in the product, and they're going to believe it, and they're going to want to buy it too. And I was like, that makes complete sense. If I believe in the product, if I'm really excited about it, somehow they're going to be excited about it. That makes complete sense. So I knocked on the door, and I started talking about my features and benefits of the product and the service and how great it was and what it was going to do for them. And we were the number one company in the state and the market leader and wah, wah, wah. And I started noticing I was getting all of these objections from the very first door. What? They didn't tell me about that. They'd say, we don't need it. Your price is too high. We already talked with somebody from your company. Here's my favorite. We're good. Anybody get that on the door? Oh, we're good. I know you guys get solar, we're good, right? See, I got alarms, we're good. That's what I got. Or how about, oh, we're not interested. We're not interested. You know what? Let me think it over. I need to keep looking around. Let me do more research. I need to talk to my spouse. Can you call me back in a week, a month, a year later? Raise your hand if you get some of those objections. There's some people here, they don't get any of those objections. They close to everybody. I love that. Love that for you. And it finally got to a point after about 7 to 8 weeks of just nonstop getting punched in the face by my prospects, all that rejection. I remember one late Friday evening, 7 to 8 weeks in, I remember standing on a curb waiting to get picked up. It was Friday night. It was about 10:30 at night. They always picked up the sales guys last who couldn't sell. So I was like the last guy, okay? Dead last in the company. There's 400 reps. I was like number 399, all right? And so I hardly made any sales for the first 2 months. Straight commission, you don't sell, you don't get paid, right? And that's the way it should be. And I remember standing on that curve, and I remember like you're talking like end of June. You know, anybody live in the Midwest or the South? In June and July, it gets somewhat humid and hot. I remember like the sweat just drenching down my shirt and my back. I remember like my legs like completely exasperated, like completely like jello. I still remember actually like I don't know why, but my right foot was like rubbing into the asphalt. Like through my shoes, I could feel how hot it was. And I'd worked 12 hours that day and actually made 0 sales. So I made $0. And in fact, over that entire week, I had made 0 sales, and I'd worked 60 hours. And I remember feeling to myself, broken as a human being. And I thought, maybe selling just wasn't for me. You ever felt that way yourself? Have you ever looked in your bank account and you notice you had more going out than you had coming in? Well, that's where I was. Completely lost, had no idea what to do. Now, I remember my sales manager picked me up that night, the last one again, and he popped in a Tony Robbins CD. Raise your hand if you know who Tony Robbins is. Personal development guru, great guy, right? Never met him, he's a great guy, watched him a lot. And it was like on this little CD. 22 years ago, people listened to these round things called CDs. It's crazy. But Tony said something in there that completely changed my viewpoint about how I viewed skill sets. Because I thought all skills were just the same. Everything was just the same. And Tony said something like this. Now, I might be butchering it. But he said this. He said, you will fail for the simple reason you don't learn the right skills necessary to succeed. You will fail if you don't learn the right skills necessary to succeed. Now, he went on to say that everybody is taught skills. But he says the people who fail were the ones who were not taught the right ones. And suddenly it was like this light bulb moment that there was a difference in skill level. It was like divine intervention from the heavens that maybe what the company was training me and what I was learning from what I now call the old sales gurus, maybe they just weren't the right skills anymore. Maybe they were different levels of skills. Maybe they just didn't work as well. Maybe they were just outdated. I'd never thought that that could even be a possibility. I just accepted what they wrote in the books and the programs like it was the gospel or something. Now, at that point, I decided I was going to have to do something. So I had to commit to my family that I was going to have to acquire more advanced skills. I didn't really have a choice because I know you, like me, want to provide a great lifestyle for your family as well. That's why you're here. That's why you got into solar. But here was my major dilemma. You see, I was being taught traditional selling skills, okay, from the company, from the sales gurus. I was being taught these traditional sales skills, right? And some of them would work, and I would make a few sales when I used them. But I also noticed a lot of their techniques didn't work at all. In fact, when I used them, I would actually notice I'd get more objections. I would actually trigger more sales resistance, and I would actually lose more sales than if I didn't use them. Raise your hand if you felt that yourself. Okay, a lot of you. Now, at the same time, I was in college. Okay, I was majoring in behavioral science, like Jim talked about, and human psychology, which is really the study of the brain and how human beings make decisions. Why does a human being go left instead of going right by just looking at a sign? What triggers them to do that? What triggers them to say no compared to saying yes? Isn't that really what Sales 101 is, right? So I started learning from my professors. One of them was by the name of Robert Cialdini. Raise your hand if you've ever read anything by Robert Cialdini. Books like Persuasion, Influence. Okay, he was one of my professors. That's kind of when online courses started to come out in like the middle of 2000. So I was studying from a couple of professors at NYU, psychology professors, and they were saying that the most persuasive way to communicate was over here. But the sales gurus and the programs, they were saying it was over here. So I was really confused. I'm like, what is going on? So I'm like, how do I take what my professors are training me from the data? Because there was no structured sales process. They weren't teaching like, oh, when the prospect says this, you're going to ask this question, and then you're going to take them through the step-by-step sales structure. Like that didn't exist. It was more theory. It was more tips. So how do I take behavioral science and the way the brain works and wrap that into a step-by-step sales process? So I started learning how to do that. And I started acquiring techniques that work with human behavior rather than work against it. And I started learning techniques that got my prospects to pull me in and sell themselves rather than me trying to push and manipulate and press them forward. And overnight, selling became very, very easy and exceptionally profitable. Now, why did I just tell you all that? Because you don't care about my story, do you? I mean, you're a human being. You don't care about, who do you care about most? You care about yourself, right? It's okay to admit that you're a human being. Why did I tell you that? Because I want you to imagine, okay, within 1 year of me almost quitting, in that sales job, I was making like $100,000 a month. A year before I almost quit. Within 5 years of that, I was making well over $2 million a year in straight commissions at my sales job in a completely different industry. You see, fortunately for me, I wasn't born out of my mother's womb with advanced questioning skills. Raise your hand if you're born out of your mother's womb with advanced questioning skills. Anybody? Oh, no. Okay. Okay. I wasn't born out of my mother's womb with advanced tonality skills. I wasn't born out of my mother's womb with advanced objection handling and prevention skills. I had to acquire those skills. I had to learn those skills. So if a kid who grew up in the middle of Missouri on a cattle ranch, for hell's sake, excuse my language, outside of a town of less than 800 people can acquire those skills, then what does that mean for you? It means each one of you, it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, short, tall, 7 legs, 3 arms, I don't really care. It means you can acquire the same skills. You can quite literally go from wherever you're at right now, even if you're already making multiple 6 figures a year, and you can make 2, 3, 5 times more than what you're making now once you start acquiring what I'm going to show you today.